O eternal and almighty God, from whom all power and wisdom come, we are assembled here before thee to frame such laws as may tend to the welfare and prosperity of our province. Grant, O merciful God, we pray thee, that we may desire only that which is in accordance with thy will, that we may seek it with wisdom and know it with certainty and accomplish it perfectly, for the glory and honor of thy name and for the welfare of all our people. Amen. We acknowledge we are gathered on Treaty 1 territory and that Manitoba is located on the treaty territories and ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, Anishin Inuak, Dakota Oyate, Dene Sulene, and Nihi-Thuwag nations. We acknowledge Manitoba is located on the homeland of the Red River Métis. We acknowledge northern Manitoba includes lands that were and are the ancestral lands of the Inuit. We respect the spirit and intent of treaties and treaty making and remain committed to working in partnership with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people in the spirit of truth, reconciliation, and collaboration. Good afternoon, everybody. Please be seated. Routine proceedings, introduction of bills, committee reports, ministerial statements, the Honourable Minister of Agriculture, and I would indicate that the required 90 minutes notice prior to routine proceedings was provided in accordance with Rule 26, Bracket 2. Would the Honourable Minister please proceed with his statement?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker. 2 weeks ago, I was given the opportunity to attend the Royal Manitoba Winter Fair alongside some of my colleagues here from the Legislature. During my week in Brandon, I was given a chance to meet so many stakeholders and people from Westman and residents from around Manitoba face to face, Madam Speaker. For the past 2 years, fair organizers have been unable to host the beloved event due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. But thanks to the hard work and determination of the Provincial Exhibition Board, including Kathy Clover, Wayne Burr, Clint Swain, and many others involved, too numerous to mention, Manitobans were finally able to return to the long-standing spring break tradition for 2022. I would like to thank the hosting MLAs, the member for Brandon West, as well as the member for Brandon East, and thank you for their great hospitality and being such great hosts. We can't forget to recognize all the sponsors who made this possible. When you're out shopping, please remember those businesses that supported the fair and helped make it an outstanding experience. It was clear to me that Manitobans missed the fair, and seeing the Keystone Centre packed was a sight for sore eyes. 2 years, Madam Speaker. It's been 2 years since we've been able to gather like this, and it was abundantly clear to me just how much our province missed it. For many in Manitoba, the fair plays an important role. It gives those, both urban and rural, a chance to see firsthand the work that goes on in our agriculture sector. And it also gives those in the ag industry a chance to celebrate and put on display all of their hard work. One highlight of my visit was the unveiling of Clover the cow. Clover is a life-size birthing simulator that offers a variety of hands-on educational scenarios for calving and animal husbandry. This will help prepare youth, including 4-H groups, for a future in agriculture. I was given the chance to deliver a calf, whom I decided to name Leaf, and that decision was named after the 4-H logo, the 4-leaf clover. Clover the cow, Leaf the calf. Anyway, it was a thrilling and informative experience. One I hope that many will be used as an educational experience for many Manitobans in the coming years. I would like to table some of these pictures of my meeting with Clover, and I learned to appreciate all that she has to offer. Clover and Leaf will be a fantastic resource for all Manitobans looking for a future in the agriculture sector. She features an anatomically correct bone structure, and you can place the calf in different realistic birthing scenarios, such as a breech calf, and by utilizing air bladders, Instructors can also increase the difficulty of delivery to ensure students are prepared for real-life situations. This $5,000 contribution was an invaluable investment. It was in addition to our government's $900,000 commitment to 4-H over the next 3 years, which I was able to celebrate with the 4-H Council of Manitoba. I look forward to Clover and Leaf providing young farmers and youth with crucial information and experience needed to begin a career in agriculture. Of course, Clover was just one of many exciting moments at the fair. There was horse jumping, trailer rides, a variety of different shows, and we can't forget all that fantastic fair food. Again, I wish to thank everyone involved in making the 2022 Royal Manitoba Winter Fair a huge success this year. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Just a reminder to members that when holding up something for tabling, it is meant to be just held up quickly and put down, otherwise it could be viewed as a prop. So just a reminder to members. The Honourable Member for Burrows.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I was honored to attend the Royal Manitoba Winter Fair recently, along with a number of other members of Manitoba Legislature. I took my 9-year-old son, Jasing, with me to the fair. I saw his happiness watching a chicken hatching out of an egg and touching sheep, horses, goats, cows, and little calves, first time in his life. He learned that horses sleep while they stand. He learned from which side you mount on a horse, how much water a 1,200-pound horse drinks daily, and how many eggs a hen lays in a year. This event is such an educational experience, not just for little kids, but for all of us as well. Not many MLAs know answers to all these questions. While I watched my son learning about rural life, agriculture, and livestock, I was thinking about our next generation kids who have never been to a farm, dairy, hog barn, vegetable garden, poultry farm. I was thinking about those who have never had a ride on a horse wagon. I feel myself fortunate enough to have this experience. I encourage those who are listening to make it to the fair with their families next year. Madam Speaker, I have a special connection with Brandon as I lived there in 2014 and started my first full-time job in Manitoba, south of the town. It refreshed my memories about my stay there back then. My son and I drove past the house we used to rent, and it refreshed his mind about his experience living there when he was just 16 months old. It was a pleasure meeting with people of Westman. Manitoba Pork organized a lunch that was a wonderful opportunity to meet many hog producers and their executive members. As the agricultural critic, I am always eager to hear concerns from agriculture workers and their perspectives on the state of farming in this province. I hope that all Manitobans involved in agriculture know that my door is always open to meet and talk. I'll continue to fight for our farmers in the legislature and work together with my colleagues to make their lives better. It was also nice to rub shoulders and chat with members opposite, including the agriculture minister. I look forward to attending in future as well, and I encourage all my colleagues in this chamber to consider attending this fair next year. I would like to thank all the fair organizers and volunteers for organizing such a wonderful event. On behalf of my NDP colleagues, I thank and congratulate all the fair's organizers and volunteers and ask for leave to enter the names of the provincial exhibition of Manitoba's executive and directors into Hansard. 140 years after the Brandon Agricultural Society was founded in 1882 to showcase Westman's farm products, you're still doing your industry, region, and province proud. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Is there leave of the House to include those names in Hansard? Leave has been granted. The Honourable Member for St. Boniface.
Speaker, I ask for leave to speak to the minister's statement.
Is there leave to allow the member to respond to the ministerial statement? Leave has been granted. The Honourable Member for St. Boniface.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I've always enjoyed going to the Royal Manitoba Winter Fair, and this year's visit was no exception. As they say, it's been a spring break tradition for over 115 years, and I've been going since before I was elected. It's an amazing exhibition that takes in everything from fiddling and jigging contests, animal displays, and of course, good food and a good time. For a supposed city slicker such as myself and my family, it's an opportunity to get a taste of farm life and a whiff of it too, without all the hard work, pigs nipping at your ankles or 16-hour days on a tractor. My kids were happy to see the baby goats, sheep, chickens, 1 2-week-old calves, and many others at the petting zoo. And I was pleased to see many of my colleagues from the legislature this year. I stopped into the local Western shop and picked myself up a fancy cowboy hat and a Western shirt as well. And there are miniature horses there that are smaller than a Great Dane, and the heavy horses are truly spectacular. And they've always been a highlight for me. And if you'll bear with me, there's a history of champions from Brandon that we should all know about, courtesy of local historian Chris Cassidy. The Winter Fair's Clydesdale show has often been considered one of the best on the continent. That's in part because a century ago, 2 Manitoba companies, Manitoba Cartage and Shea's Brewery in Winnipeg, were renowned for their teams of Clydesdales, especially delivering barrels of beer. In 1933, a retiring Mr. Shea sold one of his teams to an American brewer in St. Louis, the largest brewery in North America, in fact, Anheuser-Busch, which makes Budweiser. Anheuser-Busch bought even more. They became the iconic Budweiser Clydesdales that we have all likely seen in an ad, often at the Super Bowl. They may still be Manitoba born and bred, because in the last 10 years, Anheuser-Busch has still been buying Clydesdales from breeders in our province. I encourage everyone who can to make their way to the Manitoba Winter Fair, because you can still see displays and achievements that are among the best in the world. It's a great tradition we should all be proud of. Congratulations on another successful year, and we all look forward to returning. Thank you.
Member's statement. The Honourable Member for Brandon East.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I'm proud to stand before my colleagues and acknowledge the ongoing growth and success of the City of Brandon's Green Cart program. As a pilot project, this program initially ran from July 2010 to July 2011, with 500 participating households from various areas of the city. Due to the success of this pilot project, the program was again able to gain further funding to increase the program for an additional 5,500 households. Since then, the Green Cart program has increased by 500 to 700 participants each year. Madam Speaker, as of April 1st of this year, the City of Brandon has over 9,000 Green Cart program participants. Currently, the program is voluntary, but it is the goal of the city to have full participation of the Green Cart program by the year 2030. Several environmental, economic, and social benefits come about because of a successful organic recycling program. This includes processing waste materials to create a new usable and valuable product, something which can be used within city operations and or returned to the residents of the City of Brandon for their use. Soil amendment is available for purchase from the Eastville Landview site from March to November annually. When possible, an annual giveaway event is held during Compost Awareness Week in May of each year. Madam Speaker, it is estimated that 30 to 50% of the residential waste stream is organic in nature. So removing this material will save valuable landfill space, which is very costly to replace. With over 15,000 tons of organic waste being diverted from the landfill, the estimated life of our landfill has been extended by approximately 9 years. I want to praise the work of the City of Brandon staff and say thank you to all the residents of Brandon for doing their part in helping our environment by participating in the Green Cart program. Thank you very much.
The Honourable Member for Union Station.
I'm honored to rise today and recognize a Westman great, Tanya McCabe. To be good at anything, Madam Speaker, for many decades is an accomplishment, but to be successful as a university athlete, then as a university coach for a total of over 30 years is no easy feat. Tanya has served as the head coach of the University of Winnipeg women's basketball team for 26 years. She's been on the bench for well over 500 victories and coached her team to 5 national championship appearances, including a silver medal finish just weeks ago. As a Westman player herself, Tanya was a renowned athlete and was recognized for her achievements as a 3-time All-Canadian. She was inducted into the Basketball Manitoba Hall of Fame in 2003, and in 2017, she was named the Canada West Women's Basketball Coach of the Year. During her time as head coach, Tanya has coached more than 150 athletes, including myself, and she has an astounding 98% senior graduation rate. Tanya's approach in fostering a sense of accountability in all athletes and setting the example of putting people first is something I still benefit from in life and as the MLA for Union Station. She is the winningest and longest tenured coach in the program's history and is now heading back to her roots in Halifax, embarking on a new opportunity where she can be closer to her family. Tanya, we will never forget your commitment and dedication in not only cultivating resilient and successful student athletes, but resilient and outstanding people. We became better players because of you coaching us, and we became better people because you believed in us. I ask that all members join me in thanking Tanya McKay for all she's given to the basketball community, the University of Winnipeg, our city and province. Congratulations on an amazing coaching career, Coach.
The Honourable Member for La Vérendrye.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Last week, I had the honor of attending the Manitoba Wildfire and Conservation Officer Services Fire Services Exemplary Service Awards ceremony held here at the Legislative Building. Minister Fielding presented medals to 16 dedicated and long-serving individuals.
Order, please. Just remind the member that members should be referred to by their constituencies or ministers by their titles. The Honourable Member for La Vérendrye.
The Honourable Member for Kirkfield Park presented medals to 16 dedicated and long-serving individuals. These medals are the Governor-General's Awards that honors long-serving members of a recognized Canadian Fire Service for their good conduct and efficiency. This award was recently expanded to include members of Canada's wildfire agencies. This is the first time that Manitoba has held a ceremony to honor local recipients. Today I stand in this House to honor a recipient of one of these awards, Larry Charette of Woodridge, Manitoba. Larry is one of the longest-serving members of the wildfire services. Larry is the senior district fire ranger located at the Marcia Fire Base in southeastern Manitoba. He has also served as initial attack crew member and District Fire Ranger 2 for the area. Larry has served in many capacities over his 39 seasons with the Wildfire Service, including Value Protection Leader, Sector Leader, and numerous logistics and service functions on larger fires. Larry has been a mentor to many over his career. Larry has also received the second special presentation, the 2021 Manitoba Wildfire Fighter of the Year. Larry embodies the values of the Manitoba Wildfire Service and has demonstrated this throughout his tenure at the Marcia Fire Base. In his role as Senior Fire Ranger, he has been a competent and relied upon source of knowledge and experience for his area and the province. I would ask all in this chamber to help me congratulate Larry Charette on receiving his exemplary service medal and being chosen as the 2021 Wildfire Service Firefighter of the Year. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Kuwait-Nook.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm honored to rise today to share a few words about a truly inspiring individual, Dr. Marcia Anderson, who has joined us with her family in the gallery today. Marcia Anderson, MD, is a proud Cree Anishinaabe woman with family roots in the Norway House Cree Nation as well as the Peguis First Nation. Growing up right here in the north end of Winnipeg and graduating with her MD from the University of Manitoba, and I might add, she was the youngest known Indigenous graduate from the University of Manitoba Medical School at age 24. She was also the youngest president of the Indigenous Physicians Association of Canada, a position she held for 3 years. During COVID-19, Dr. Anderson found herself in the spotlight as the lead for the Manitoba First Nation Pandemic Response Coordination Team. Through her collaborative work to develop a process to stratify and report data separately for First Nations people, it became one of the foundations for influencing how the government and health systems responded to the needs of First Nation people during the pandemic. Amongst her many accolades, Dr. Anderson has sat on countless boards and committees. She has received numerous awards and recognitions, including a National Aboriginal Achievement Award. She was named one of Canada's 100 most powerful women in 2018. In 2021, Dr. Anderson received the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons of Canada Dr. Thomas Dignified Indigenous Health Award. She was also named Physician of the Year by Doctors Manitoba for her efforts to reduce the disproportionate impact of COVID-19 on diverse BIPOC communities. And last month, Madam Speaker, Dr. Anderson was appointed Vice Dean, Indigenous Health, Social Justice, and Anti-Racism at the University of Manitoba. Dr. Anderson is the epitome of hard work, dedication, passion, and success. Dr. Anderson's vision is for equality in healthcare for all. She's become a voice and an advocate for the voices that feel silenced. Madam Speaker, I could spend all day mentioning the work and accolades of Dr. Anderson, but I will end with this. I was inspired when I heard of Dr. Anderson speaking about instilling core values in her own children. She says their normal is to be surrounded by Indigenous physicians, nurses, authors, politicians, and educators. So what they know of being Indigenous is centered around hard work, education, community, connection, and service to community through your gifts. Madam Speaker, it is by Dr. Anderson sharing her own knowledge and gifts with all of us that truly makes us all people across Turtle Island better. And by living that philosophy in her own family, she will truly inspire us all to open up and share our gifts with the world. Dr. Marcia Anderson, I say miigwech for sharing your gifts with all of us.
The Honourable Member for St. Boniface.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to address a looming issue that is being caused by Russia's unprovoked war on Ukraine, which is the risk of famine, and I hope all members in this legislature can work together on this urgent issue. Canada has a long history of providing food in time of need, and this is the world's time of need. Here in Manitoba, we have major agricultural companies and organizations with international reach, including the Canadian Food Grain Bank and many more who could play a part. We should make no mistake that Russia's war on Ukraine is part of a campaign to destabilize and upend the world order through war and famine that could lead to tens of millions or hundreds of millions of refugees fleeing their homelands in desperation. Ukraine is the breadbasket of Europe and supplies North Africa and the Middle East with grain. There are already food and supply shortages in Yemen, Syria, Afghanistan, and elsewhere. I believe that Vladimir Putin has dangerously misread this situation. He thought Ukraine was weak. He thought our allies were divided. He thought his army was stronger than it is. But the conflicts of the last century are back to haunt us, and it has to be said the two extremes of totalitarianism, one of total government, the other of puppet governments in total private control, have always stood in opposition to the kind of government that every member in this chamber supports and represents here in Canada. That is democracy and the rule of law. Not perfect. Democracies have had their own share of moral catastrophes. We try as we can to grapple with the sins of the past, but we can still admit them and seek to heal. We can also now fight for justice and for our highest ideals, both at home and abroad. It is critical to recognize that we in Canada have the capacity to feed all our citizens and still have much more left to give. In 2019, the organization's Second Harvest prepared a report that showed that Canada has astonishing levels of food waste at nearly 60%. So we can contribute to preventing famine while still caring for our own. We can fight starvation with food, fight cruelty with kindness, fight fear with courage, and lies with the truth, and to show together what Manitoba and Canada truly stand for. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Oral questions. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Madam Speaker, in February, the Pimicikamak Cree Nation suffered a terrible tragedy. That's when a young toddler and two teenagers died in a fire. RCMP reported that they weren't able to enter the home because it was engulfed in flames. Now, 4 of the 7 people in the home were able to escape out a window, but 3 did not survive. It's a terrible tragedy. I'm sure we all remember it. It underlines the need for supports when it comes to housing and fire safety. First Nations in Manitoba. What actions has the Premier taken to support the people of Pimicikamak Cree Nation when it comes to housing, fire safety, and needed supports?
The Honourable First Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I thank the Leader of the Opposition for the question. It's an important one, and certainly our hearts go out to all of those in Pimicikamak First Nation, Madam Speaker. After this horrific tragedy, I visited the community myself and visited with the family and visited with the entire community that was devastatingly impacted by this horrific fire that took place within their community, Madam Speaker. And certainly I just want to extend once again our heartfelt sorrow to those families and indeed to the entire community. And as I said to them then, and I'll say to them again today, that we will work with the federal government to ensure that those supports are in place, to ensure that we encourage the federal government to make sure that the supports are in place to ensure that this never happens again, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a supplementary question.
Madam Speaker, the people of the Pimicikamak Cree Nation ought to be able to count on the same level of support as any other Manitoban. Yet they live in a large community with a lot of overcrowding. That leads to poorer outcomes in a myriad of fashions, including in healthcare, but relevant to the discussion today also when it comes to fire safety. Now, the province is a party to the Northern Flood Agreement, as is Manitoba Hydro. So there is a role to play here. I ask the Premier, which specific actions has their government taken to help Pimicikamak Cree Nation?
The Honourable First Minister.
Well, Madam Speaker, when I was visiting the community and visiting with the chief, visiting with elders from the community, visiting with the family of the horrific situation that took place and the deaths of those family members who lost their lives in the fire, Madam Speaker. While I was there were a number of issues that were brought up, and I committed to working with them. When it comes to Manitoba Hydro, I understand there has been some challenges with the community to be able to sit down with Manitoba Hydro, and we are working diligently on that with Manitoba Hydro to ensure they get back to the table and have those discussions moving forward, Madam Speaker. Again, we will also work with the federal government to ensure that there's proper supports put in place for the Pimicikamak Cree Nation, Madam Speaker, and other First Nations across Manitoba to ensure that this horrific situation never happens again.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a final supplementary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. People living on reserve, people living in First Nations are 10 times more likely than other Canadians to die from fire. Provincial governments in other jurisdictions have taken action, taken concrete steps like providing smoke detectors for those living on reserve. May seem like a small gesture, but it's an important one. Again, we know the provincial government here in Manitoba is a party into the modern treaty known as the Northern Flood Agreement with the Pimicikamak Cree Nation, as is Manitoba Hydro. So I ask again, which specific steps has the Premier taken to assist the Pimicikamak Cree Nation in the wake of this terrible tragedy?
The Honourable First Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And once again, I'll just reiterate that after visiting the community, Madam Speaker, and these issues were brought to my attention, we have reached out to Manitoba Hydro to ensure that those discussions continue to take place at that level. And we also discussed that the need to bring the federal government to the table to ensure that we all work together towards ensuring that these horrific tragedies never happen again in communities like Pimicikamak Cree Nation, but other First Nations communities across our province, Madam Speaker. We recognize that there's more work to do, and we are committed to working with the federal government and with First Nations communities to ensure that that these types of situations don't happen again.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a new question.
Madam Speaker, the good people of Thompson and many surrounding communities have been hard at work these past few months. They've been setting up tables in the mall. They've been circulating petitions in the community. They've been meeting at A&W to strategize about how they can get foot care services returned to Thompson after this government cut them. Now, we know foot care is an important preventative form of health care. It can keep people healthy in the community and out of the emergency room, out of the operating room. It also leads to a better quality of life for those who receive this service. Given the tremendous work of the people of Thompson, will this government walk back their cut and restore foot care services to Thompson and surrounding areas?
The Honourable First Minister.
Well, once again, Madam Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition continues to put false information on the record. In fact, we are investing almost $1 billion more in healthcare, and we'll have more to come when the Minister of Finance comes forward this afternoon and presents the budget in this chamber, Madam Speaker. But what I will say to the member opposite is obviously we have introduced the Clinical Preventative Services Plan to deal with ensuring that we provide those services to Manitobans closer to home, Madam Speaker. We are committed to that, and more will come forward in the budget this afternoon.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a supplementary question.
You know, Madam Speaker, when the Premier stands in here and says that she is committed to carrying out Brian Pallister's healthcare plan on behalf of all Manitobans, please don't. When it comes to foot care in the city of Thompson, they had foot care serving people in northern Manitoba, and now they don't. What happened? The fact is, this government cut a service. It cut a healthcare service that helps keep people healthy in the community and was also economically sound because it prevented people from requiring surgeries and amputations in the future. Given their abysmal record when it comes to healthcare, will they at least start with this one small step and reverse the cut to foot care in Thompson?
The Honourable First Minister.
Well, Madam Speaker, I would hope that the Leader of the Opposition would start at some point to put some actual facts on the record in this chamber. For several days now, and for months and years, he has come into the chamber and he has put false information on the record. We are investing more in healthcare, almost $1 billion more than the NDP ever did when they were in power, Madam Speaker. And I know the member opposite can sit and criticize all he wants day in and day out, Madam Speaker. But what is evident is that they offer no solutions to these issues for Manitobans. Madam Speaker, we have a plan that will offer a better, brighter future for all Manitobans, no matter where they live in Manitoba.
Order. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a final supplementary.
Here's a solution, Madam Speaker. Restore foot care services to the people of Thompson. I think we all understand how it delivers a better quality of life if somebody doesn't have to get a toe amputated, Madam Speaker. But here's why it makes sense for the healthcare system writ large. Having one toe amputated costs the healthcare system some $14,000. A visit to a foot care service, $50, Madam Speaker. This is the approach that this government has taken. They've cut services that keep people healthy at home, and they cause not only a healthcare deficit, but also a ballooning fiscal deficit here in the province of Manitoba. We know that their approach, a continuation of Brian Pallister's plan, is failing. Will they abandon it? Starting with restoring foot care services to northern Manitoba.
The Honourable First Minister.
Well, what I will say to Manitobans, Madam Speaker, is that we will continue to make more investments in healthcare, way more than the NDP ever did when they were in power. And stay tuned, Madam Speaker. The Minister of Finance will be in here very shortly to address this very issue in the way of a budget in this chamber this afternoon, Madam Speaker. But I will say that it's very interesting, and normally the opposition puts forward some sort of an alternative budget, a plan, Madam Speaker. What's interesting is that the Leader of the Opposition and none of the NDP put together an alternative budget for Manitobans to see what their plan is, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, they obviously have no plan. We have a plan. We have a better plan that will deliver a better, brighter future for all Manitobans.
Order. The Honourable Member for Point Douglas.
Miigwech, Madam Speaker. Homelessness is at a crisis point in Point Douglas in downtown Winnipeg. This past winter, we saw too many of our fellow Manitobans outside These are our brothers, our sisters, our friends, our family. Unhoused people in our communities need our support, understanding, and the resources to find sustainable housing. This government promised a winter homelessness strategy, but all that happened was the situation got worse and we saw more people than ever calling a bus shelter home. Why has this government failed to implement a real homelessness strategy here in Winnipeg and Greater Manitoba?
The Honourable Minister of Families.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And first of all, I'd like to thank the nearly 400 Manitobans who participated in our first ever whole-of-government homelessness strategy. We went out to community to hear from service providers, as well as people with lived experience, their thoughts on what they needed to see in a whole-of-government strategy on ending homelessness, something that has never been done before in the province of Manitoba. In addition to that, our government spent nearly $50 million this past year on mental health, addictions, and supports for those who are unsheltered. Madam Speaker, we know there's a long way to go to addressing the needs of those who are precariously housed in the province, and our government has a plan to ensure that all Manitobans have a safe, affordable place to call home.
The Honourable Member for Point Douglas on a supplementary question.
Madam Speaker, and I'm sure the minister heard on her speaking with all of these different organizations that definitely not selling off social housing is a bad idea, and that's exactly what this government has done. It's made it harder for Manitobans to find housing. We know that addictions are often contribute to homelessness and can make it harder to escape destructive cycles. This government has an opportunity to support people where they are at, to make sure that they can get access to the services that they need. They should support a safe consumption site. Will the Premier stop the ideological opposition and support a safe consumption site today?
The Honourable Minister for Mental Health and Community Wellness.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I appreciate the question coming from the member opposite about harm reduction strategies. I know that I have offered multiple times that I could sit down with the member and we can talk about the various ideas coming forward. Madam Speaker, we are investing in core services. When we speak to the experts and we listen to the reports that have been given to us, the investments in core services must be there before you look at other strategies. However, Madam Speaker, I will want to point out that we have invested $428,000 in Clinic's mobile withdrawal unit, which is an innovative way to help those to medically detox wherever they feel the most safe, including in shelters, Madam Speaker. So a shout out to Clinic and keep up the good work.
Here, here.
The Honourable Member for Point Douglas on a final supplementary.
Miigwech, Madam Speaker. And I know that minister has heard from those folks that they've been calling for a safe consumption site for some time now. They failed to listen. They have their head in the sand and they're trying to ignore it. It's not going away. Unhoused Manitobans are being pushed to the side by this government. More and more people are homeless in our city and province than ever before. Organizations came together just a couple of weeks ago to show this government the path forward. Share information, fund services properly, make it a priority. That's the message. Will the government listen and develop a real strategy to combat homelessness today?
The Honourable Minister of Families.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And our government is committed to creating new housing units in the province of Manitoba. That is why we've created 735 new units since we formed government with an investment of $110 million. That is why we signed on to the National Housing Strategy, which commits to building 12% new units in the province of Manitoba. And that is why we're working with many community partners to ensure that there is all Manitobans have a safe, affordable place to call home. We know that there's more work to be done. We inherited $1 billion deficit on the repair and maintenance of our Manitoba housing stock. We're going to commit to getting all those units repaired and maintained and get all Manitobans a safe, affordable place to call home, something they never did.
The Honourable Member for Notre Dame.
Madam Speaker, a Manitoba housing building in my constituency, 515 Elgin, has become a dangerous place for the seniors who live here. In the last few years, the building has become a hub for gang violence, drug trafficking, and sex work by those who don't live there. Non-tenants sleep and defecate in stairwells, the laundry room, and even in residence units. Madam Speaker, this is a home for seniors who deserve to live in a safe and quiet place. Why has the minister allowed issues at 515 Elgin to continue?
The Honourable Minister of Families.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I appreciate the members opposite bringing this situation to my attention and for working. I'm very pleased to work with the member on behalf of her constituents. In regards to the building that she's mentioned, we did have an opportunity to go visit on site. We've enhanced some security measures at that building and many others. We had a historic investment, $4.4 million in upgrading security equipment in our Manitoba housing stock this year. We've also enhanced on-site personnel and made sure that there's a 24/7 number for residents to call when there's security incidents happening in their Manitoba housing units. Madam Speaker, we know there's more work to be done, and we're going to continue to work hard towards ensuring all Manitobans have a safe place to call home.
The Honourable Member for Notre Dame on a supplementary question.
Madam Speaker, I've been raising this issue with the Minister's office for over 2 years now, and whatever has been done has not been even close to being enough. Madam Speaker, these residents are grandparents who can't even have their grandchildren visit because it's so unsafe. In the last 2 months alone, a senior was attacked in an elevator and 2 women were shot. Last year, there was a murder, and on New Year's, a paramedic was stabbed while delivering care. And repairmen here wear bulletproof vests. This is unacceptable. The few steps that the government has taken are not enough. Tenants are asking for 24/7 security at the doors and more residential supports to help them feel safe. Will the minister listen and provide 24/7 security at 515 Elgin Avenue?
The Honourable Minister of Families.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And of course, we already have enhanced the security personnel that's on site at the building and assessing it on a regular basis. And we've also made sure that there's card key access as well as security cameras. We know that there is more work to be done in securing, making sure that all these buildings are offering safe places for Manitobans to call home. And that is why we have a team committed to doing that job, enhancing security measures where needed, when needed.
The Honourable Member for Notre Dame on a final supplementary.
Madam Speaker, the security is not enough, the seniors are not safe, and this minister is not doing her job. We know that 24/7 security can make a difference. A building just down the street saw their issues reduced by 90% after investing in quality security. But to truly fix this problem, we need to go beyond that. We need to create supportive housing services that tackle the addictions and poverty issues that fuel violence and crime. Seniors deserve to feel safe in their homes. Yep. They deserve better than being trapped in their units, scared to use the elevator, and to do their laundry. Will the minister take action, install 24/7 security, and give 515 Elgin the attention that it needs?
The Honourable Minister of Families.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And I reject the premise of the member's question, or when she states that Manitoba Housing has done nothing for the residents in her constituency. We have enhanced security. We know that there's more work to be done. She also mentioned wraparound supports. That is why our government is committed to ensuring that there are those wraparound supports, particularly for those who are precariously housed or unsheltered. That is why we spent nearly $50 million last year on wraparound supports and shelter for those individuals. That is why when we create new housing units, we're always looking to make sure that we have those investments so that those services are available for those people who need them the most. We know there's more work to be done, Madam Speaker, and when the Finance Minister comes in here in a few hours, we're going to learn exactly how much more work we are committed to getting done in the upcoming year.
The Honourable Member for St. James.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's getting harder and harder for families and seniors in St. James to make ends meet. The Stephenson government is making things worse by raising taxes on renters. Every renter in St. James and across the province will pay $175 more in taxes because of this government, and thousands of renters will see above guideline rent increases approved this year. That's wrong, Madam Speaker. Will the government stop making life unaffordable for renters in St. James?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources and Northern Development.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And the only thing consistent about the NDP is their inconsistencies. We know some of the leadership upon the NDP were a part of a committee that made a lot of the decisions in terms of the above rent guidelines. What our government is doing is making life more affordable in two different ways. For renters, there's a rent freeze that was put in place we think makes a lot of sense coming out of the pandemic. And over 650,000 Manitobans that own property saw a reduction in taxes in terms of their education property tax. Madam Speaker, I would state there could be some more good news in the next little while.
Order. The Honourable Member for St. James on a supplementary question.
This Premier raised taxes on thousands of renters in St. James last year. That decision took $175 from the pockets of every single senior and working family in my constituency. Shame. That's wrong, Madam Speaker. At the same time, the government has been approving enormous above-guideline rent increases, and that means it's getting harder and harder for renters to pay the bills. The government should stop. Will they stop raising taxes on St. James renters in this budget?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources and Northern Development.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker, and representing a part of St. James, I can tell you that thousands of people in St. James got a tax on their education property tax that's real dollars in their pocket. There's thousands of people that live in apartments that had a rent frozen, which they're better off knowing that inflation's gone up over 5%. They're better off than our plan under NDP plan. The only problem is the NDP don't have a plan. They didn't introduce an alternative budget. We have a plan. It's a plan to make people more money in their pockets and make life more affordable for all Manitobans.
Order. The Honourable Member for St. James on a final supplementary.
Still no response. We'll give it another try, Madam Speaker. Seniors on fixed incomes and working families are $175 poorer because of the Stephenson government's decision to raise taxes on renters in this province. $175 might not mean much to a premier that forgets about $31 million, but it does to the people of St. James. Rent is going up, and so are taxes on renters. These are decisions made by this premier and this government, and it needs to stop. Will the premier stop raising taxes on St. James renters in the budget today? Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources and Northern Development.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. And maybe tax breaks for over 650,000 Manitobans don't mean anything for the NDP because they think that anyone that owns a property is wealthy individuals. What we did in our budget, in the last budget, we froze rents for all Manitobans in terms of the approach we're taking. In terms of a rental type of program, my advice to the member is to stay tuned for the budget. There'll be some really good news if that's the biggest issue for him in St. James.
The Honourable Member for Flin Flon.
Madam Speaker, hot water has been disrupted in the North's largest hospital at Thompson for at least 2 weeks and probably a lot longer. The emergency room in that hospital is operating with half its staff. That would be unthinkable in any other region. But apparently that's standard operating procedure for the North under this government. When will this minister give the North the health care that it deserves?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member opposite for raising this issue. We have been working very closely with the Northern Regional Health Authority on the issue related to the hot water situation. As you know, we've just gone through a pandemic. Many different sectors have been impacted. The supply chain is also one of them. And so we continue to work with the Northern Regional Health Authority as well as the Thompson Hospital. But the member opposite is not focused on the significant investments that our government has made. $812 million, the largest single healthcare commitment in Manitoba's history to improve rural and northern healthcare, and more to come, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for Flin Flon on a supplementary question.
Madam Speaker, the Northern Regional Health Authority has the hot water taps in the emergency room shut off, tagged out, unusable. And this minister thinks that's acceptable. Madam Speaker, there has to be a remedy. Supposedly parts are in order. Supposedly they're coming in a week or two. Supposedly they're going to fix it in a month. They need to fix it today. There's no acceptable reason why that hospital doesn't have hot water in its emergency room, doesn't have consistent hot water in the patient rooms. What's the minister doing to expedite repairs at Thompson Hospital today?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I had the pleasure earlier today to meet with the Mayor of Thompson, Mayor Smook. We had a very, very good conversation talking about solutions for the North, Madam Speaker, solutions for Thompson. She shared some of the solutions that have been implemented already. We talked about the creation of the new intermediate healthcare hub in northern Manitoba. We are all solutions focused, Madam Speaker. The member opposite is fear-monger focused. We will continue to work with the Thompson Hospital as well as the Northern Regional Health Authority to ensure people living in the north receive the health care services they deserve.
The honourable member for Flin Flon on a final supplementary.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. We've heard the minister say that they should be working on solutions. Here's a solution. Fix the hot water. Seems, it's not rocket science. It's a valve. Well, apparently now it's a couple of valves. We can't even get the whole story out of the Northern Health Region, and this minister doesn't really know, doesn't even know where the North is, to be honest, Madam Speaker. So when will this minister get involved and actually ensure that the hot water is fixed in the Thompson Hospital? That needs to be expedited. We can't wait for another 6 weeks or however long the minister thinks is acceptable. It needs to be done today. When will this government take action, and what action are they taking to get that fixed today?
This member's time has expired. The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I want to recognize the good work that the healthcare workers and leadership at the Thompson General Hospital and all the workers that are on the front lines have done to rectify the situation related to the hot water. And again, Madam Speaker, we're going to continue to work with them. The supply chain has been disrupted. We are working as quickly as we can to rectify the issue. But Madam Speaker, we are coming to the table as solution-focused individuals. In May, we will be talking about the issues that are unique and specific to the North, and I just have to ask why the member opposite hasn't been invited. I guess he's not solutions-focused.
Order. The honourable member for St. Boniface.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I tabled the latest Statistics Canada figures for unemployment, and while Canada as a whole is seeing some of the lowest unemployment since data started to be collected in 1976, Manitoba is bucking the trend. Our unemployment rate went up by half a point. Nearly 10,000 people lost full-time jobs. Even when offset by part-time games, that's 4,200 people out of work. Since Manitoba is clearly an outlier, does the Premier take any responsibility for the dismal performance of the province she runs?
The Honourable Minister of Economic Development, Investment and Trade.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I do appreciate the question from the member opposite. Clearly, we've been through a pandemic together in the business community. We've been supporting the business community through that to the tune of over $650 million to over 38,000 business and organizations. Madam Speaker, we're not done investing in Manitoba businesses. More to come today.
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Member for St. Boniface on a supplementary question.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. That wasn't the only bad news. Manitoba's wage increases are the worst in Canada. Year-over-year wage growth in Prince Edward Island was $2.10. Here in Manitoba, it was a tenth of that at 21 cents. Manitoba can't be a land of false hope. It needs to be a land of opportunity. Paying people peanuts means poverty for some, and that others will just seek greener pastures. In 6 years, we've never seen an actual economic plan from this government. Is it a race to the bottom based on cheap labor? Because Manitobans deserve to know.
The Honourable Minister of Economic Development, Investment and Trade.
Well, Madam Speaker, we know the opposition parties have no plan. Our government has a plan for the future. There's tremendous optimism in the business community, and we're going to be working hand in hand with the business community. We recognize Manitobans want to get back to work. Employers are looking to find employees. We're going to continue to work with the business, academia, immigration services to make sure that these positions are filled. Manitobans want to get back to work, and we're going to make sure they have the jobs to work on.
Absolutely.
The Honourable Member for Tyndall Park on a final supplementary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As displaced Ukrainians begin arriving here in Manitoba, there are many things that this government can still do to help with the transition and to ensure that every individual is provided with supports and opportunity. This government has the ability to fix up housing units. They could invest in the provincial nominee program. They could ensure those arriving will be aligned with jobs in demand. And they could invest in supports to ensure students are able to continue their education. And these are just a few examples, Madam Speaker. Will this government commit today to something tangible to help the many refugees that we are about to receive?
The Honourable First Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for the question. It's an important one, and we know that we have already invested over $800,000 for humanitarian relief for our friends in Ukraine. And I just want to say on behalf of certainly all of us on this side of the House, but certainly on behalf of all Manitobans, that our hearts go out to all of those families who have been displaced from their homes as a result of this horrific action of war on the part of Vladimir Putin, Madam Speaker. And I will tell you that we are preparing for housing, we're preparing for health and mental health, we're preparing for education, Madam Speaker, childcare, English language services, social assistance, job placements, and others, Madam Speaker, to ensure that we will welcome thousands of Ukrainians to Manitoba, Madam Speaker. We will make sure that we open our arms to all of those who are going through this horrific, horrific time in their lives. Manitoba is open for all of them, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Portage-la Prairie.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Universal access to educational program is a cornerstone of our educational system, and one of the most important ways that we can show this is through specific funding for students with special needs to ensure that they have a level playing field. Our government has committed to fund programs with this exact purpose. Can the Minister of Education outline what exactly this funding entails?
The Honourable Minister of Education and Early Childhood Learning.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague, the member from Portage-la Prairie, for asking such a great question today, Madam Speaker, and for the opportunity to speak about all the amazing work being done in each and every one of our schools right here in Manitoba by committed student services administrators. Last week, I was proud to be able to announce an additional 7 million in funding for the 22-23 school year to help divisions provide students with full access to appropriate educational funding. Madam Speaker, this is on top of the $120 million of new funding for 22-23. Madam Speaker, in a few minutes, we'll be hearing even more good news for education and early childhood learning, Madam Speaker.
Yes. The Honourable Member for Burrows.
Madam Speaker, the number of veterinarians practicing in Manitoba is quickly dropping. This is a real concern for producers who rely on the services of veterinarians to care for their animals. Producers are calling for this government's urgent attention to address this shortage. What steps is the minister taking to address the vet shortage in Manitoba?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and what a great time to remind the House that we, as this government, invest $6 million per year for 15 seats for schooling in Saskatchewan, and I'm sure that the Education Minister could expand on this, but yes, ag is very important. Veterinarians are part of that as well, and there you go.
Order. The Honourable Member for Burrows on a supplementary question.
My second question to Minister of Agriculture. Madam Speaker, the PC government is heading in the wrong direction. 3 years ago, they proposed cutting its funding to vet training by 1/3. What the minister doesn't understand is that government has a role. Cam Dahl from the pork producer says that such labor shortages are, and I quote, really impacting every link in the value chain, starting with the farmers in their barns and going through processing and trucking, end quote. What steps is the agriculture minister taking to address the vet shortage in Manitoba?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. And any single time there's 60 Manitoba students at the vet college in various stages of their program. We support 15 students every single year, and for over 4 years in various different stages. There's 60 students there at any given time, and they come back to Manitoba and practice, whether it's a large animal or small animal. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Wolseley.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The low-cost bike helmet initiative through Manitoba Healthy Living used to provide low-cost bike helmets to children through childcare centres and schools. Unfortunately, under this government, this program disappeared. Madam Speaker, this program encouraged ridership, personal safety, and alternatives to driving. It was a good thing this government cut. Will the minister reconsider and restore funding for the low-cost bike helmet initiative?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources and Northern Development.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker, and we're out of time here in terms of the budget. I can tell you the Minister of Finance is going to come in. He's going to present a budget that's going to increase money for things like health care, for education. It's going to provide incentives to make sure people are more affordable for Manitobans. Great for and Manitobans are excited for a plan that the NDP don't have, Madam Speaker.
Order.
Time for oral questions has expired. Petitions. Not hearing any petitions, grievances. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Asking for a recess.
Orders of the day, the Honourable Government House Leader.
Madam Speaker, I think as is tradition on Budget Day, we'll ask for a recess so the House can be prepared. If we could have a 5-minute recess followed by a 1-minute ringing of the bells to advise members to return to the House. So a total of 6 minutes, 5-minute recess, 1 minute ringing of the bells.
Is there leave to have a 5-minute recess followed by a 1 minute of the bells to call people back? Agreed and so ordered. And I would indicate that those in the gallery that do not have passes for the budget itself will have to exit the gallery. The only people that can be in the gallery are those that actually have passes to the budget this afternoon. So we will now take a 5-minute recess, and there will be a 1-minute bell to follow. Okay, I'll be right back. $7,000 mic.
the afternoons and we're like standing ready to roll.
Well, order, please. I would ask everybody to please take their seats. Order, please. I would ask everybody to please take their seats. Order. Is there a problem with my mic? It's working? My mic is working. Thank you. Resuming orders of the day, government business. The House is now back in session. The Honourable Minister of Finance. The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Madam Speaker, I move, seconded by the First Minister, that the House approves in general the budgetary policy of the government.
It has been moved by the Honourable Minister of Finance, seconded by the Honourable First Minister, that this House approves in general the budgetary policy of the government. The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Madam Speaker and members of the Legislative Assembly, I am pleased to rise in the House today and deliver the 2022 budget. Madame la Présidente et membres de l'Assemblée législative, c'est avec plaisir que je prends la parole en Chambre aujourd'hui pour déposer le budget de 2022. The appalling war in Ukraine has shocked Canadians and Manitobans. Ukrainian people settled on Manitoba farms as early as 1891. They have strong roots in our province. Today we have the largest proportion of Ukrainian Canadians in the country. 1 of 7 Manitobans is of Ukrainian descent. Over the last month, we have seen Manitobans of all backgrounds come together to support the Ukrainian people, with thousands attending rallies, raising funds, and offering their homes to resettled families. Madam Speaker, our government joins Manitobans in supporting the Ukrainian people in their fight for freedom. We have provided $650,000 of aid through the Ukrainian-Canadian Congress, an additional $150,000 to the Manitoba Council for International Cooperation. We've established a Ukrainian refugee task force to welcome the influx of Ukrainians who will come to our province and provide a full range of services and supports to rebuild their lives. We've expedited our applications through our MP program, and we have waived all fees for that program effective February the 22nd. And we will continue these efforts. Our hearts are open and our arms are outstretched. We stand with the Ukrainian people. Madam Speaker, we heard from 51,000 Manitobans through our online survey, town halls, and other virtual events leading up to this budget. They want a government that will take action on their priorities. They want a reliable healthcare system, relief from rising costs, an economy that provides good jobs and opportunities for their children and grandchildren. This budget produces real results for them. It strengthens our healthcare system. It invests in making life more affordable. It builds up our economy. Madam Speaker, Budget 2022 implements our plan to recover together. Across Canada, the pandemic strained our healthcare system, kept families apart, hurt our economy. Families lost loved ones, jobs were disrupted, students were sent home, seniors were isolated. From the very beginning of the pandemic, our government acted on the best public health advice available. When the health of Manitobans was threatened, we took appropriate action. When the time was right, we acted on evidence and took a balanced approach to give Manitobans their lives back. And along the way, we provided unprecedented supports to individuals, businesses, healthcare workers, and the hospitality, arts, and culture sectors. To date, our government has invested over $3.1 billion in pandemic support to protect the lives and livelihoods of Manitobans. We prioritized Indigenous communities in northern Manitoba and urban areas, and we worked in partnership with Indigenous leadership and organizations to respond. We established super sites, focused immunization teams, and pop-up community clinics to get as many vaccinations out as possible. As of this month, over 82% of eligible Manitobans are fully vaccinated, the highest rate in the prairie provinces. Last June, Manitoba became the first province to roll out their vaccine cards. With the use of these cards, our government was able to safely reopen the economy, allowing Manitobans to enjoy significant freedom in the summer and the fall. And when Omicron hit Manitoba in December, we continued a balanced and scientific approach, implementing reasonable restrictions to contain the virus while encouraging all Manitobans to get their booster shot. And our approach paid off. Over 44% of Manitobans have gotten a booster, and our hospitalization and ICU rates have declined. On March the 15th, all remaining public health restrictions were lifted, and we remain poised and prepared now to respond to new variants should they come. And that is why this year's budget includes $630 million to strengthen the fight against COVID-19 and prepare for other variants and pressures on our healthcare system. The global pandemic revealed systemic challenges in Canada's healthcare system. It revealed the need for greater flexibility and capacity to respond in a crisis, the need to reduce surgical and diagnostic wait times, to provide more compassionate care for Canadian seniors, to address the often silent epidemic of mental health and addictions that exists in our communities. These challenges are not unique to Manitoba, but in Manitoba, we are responding with $7.2 million in this budget for healthcare. It is $1 billion more than the previous government ever invested in healthcare. Madam Speaker, we are strengthening our healthcare system, addressing systemic issues revealed by the pandemic, and we are ready to recover together. Madam Speaker, we thank all of the frontline healthcare heroes who worked tirelessly over the last 2 years. Your compassion, dedication, and strength saved lives. Votre compassion, votre dévouement, et votre force ont sauvé des vies. You have the enduring gratitude of all Manitobans. Madam Speaker, we are investing $2.3 billion in targeted. Our doctors, nurses, and allied health workers know more than anyone that Manitoba needs more intensive care unit capacity, and we need more nurses to staff those units. This year's budget starts by investing $30 million in 28 additional beds to our intensive care units. To help staff those units, we're investing $11.6 million to add 260 permanent nursing seats to Manitoba's post-secondary institutions, and we are streamlining the recognition of internationally educated nurses. We also need new and updated facilities to strengthen healthcare capacity. And that is why we are investing $2.3 billion in targeted healthcare capital projects. It includes $100 million for the St. Boniface Hospital emergency room redevelopment. It means that this year, we're adding the new acute stroke unit at Health Sciences Centre, providing stroke patients with the world-class treatment they deserve, saving and restoring lives. Madam Speaker, we're getting the job done. Over future years, we're investing $812 million to build, expand, and fix our healthcare facilities in all regions of the province in support of Manitoba's clinical and preventative services plan, building new hospitals in Portage la Prairie and Neepawa, expanding hospitals in Ashern, Dauphin, Brandon, Morden Winkler, Selkirk, and Steinbach. On top of these investments, we'll hire 35 more paramedics across the province. And we are expanding dialysis services so Manitobans can get access closer to home through the home hemodialysis program. Madam Speaker, this budget provides Manitobans with a stronger healthcare system as we recover together. As all of us know, and all of us know someone on a wait list for surgery or a diagnostic test, and we know how difficult this time has been for them. As resources were redirected to address COVID-19, wait times increased. And as a result of this backlog, we hear the stories of Manitobans. And our government is getting Manitobans the care that they deserve with a $110 million investment to address the surgical and diagnostic backlog. And Madam Speaker, we're already making progress. Last year, our government established the Surgical and Diagnostic Recovery Task Force to lead this critical work. Through their efforts, we're expanding Concordia Hospital's orthopedic surgery program with a $4.9 million investment, building an additional operating room that will do an additional 1,000 surgeries each year. We invested in the spine assessment clinic, ensuring 900 patients receive their treatment sooner. We expanded Misericordia Hospital's cataract program. We entered into an agreement with Maple Surgical Center to increase gynecological surgeries. We entered into a master services agreement with Sanford Health in North Dakota for spinal surgeries that are now taking place. And we announced a new mobile CT unit and 2 new mobile MRI units, which will soon deliver nearly 12,000 CTs and 7,000 MRIs annually. We have made progress, but there is more to do. And when it comes to getting Manitobans quicker access to their surgeries and diagnostic tests, we will do whatever it takes. Madam Speaker, we know that COVID-19 impacted our seniors more than anyone else. Canadians over the age of 60 accounted for more pandemic hospitalizations and more deaths than any other age group. Tragically, we saw those impacts in our long-term care homes across the country and here at home. And our government responded immediately with a comprehensive review of our long-term care system conducted by Dr. Lynn Stevenson. And this year's budget includes $32 million to implement all 17 of her recommendations. It includes increasing staff within personal care homes. It includes ensuring seniors get the quality of care they deserve. It includes investing in new PCH beds. We're consulting on a new senior strategy on all aspects of care, helping ensure seniors can stay in the homes they love as long as possible. And I'm proud to announce that in this year's budget, there's $20 million to implement the strategy through new and expanded care options. All of us have someone in our lives suffering with mental health or addictions challenges, and those challenges were made more difficult by a global pandemic. This year's budget takes action to support them. We're investing millions more in mental health and addictions, bringing our total investment to $390 million, and we're committed to results. Our mental health roadmap for Manitoba provides a comprehensive strategy to guide investments in core services for mental health, addictions, and community wellness. I'm proud to announce that this year's budget will invest $17 million in new programs and services to help support the first year of that plan. We're also continuing to invest nearly $23.7 million to sustain a number of highly effective, evidence-driven mental health and addictions programs. It includes 60 new supportive recovery housing units, including 40 units coming online this spring at Riverwood House, in partnership with Winnipeg Supportive Housing, Inc. And for Manitobans in acute mental health crisis, we're adding 6 new crisis stabilization beds at the Crisis Response Center at HSC. Madam Speaker, we know that rapid access to addictions medicine clinics save lives. They're a key part of our government strategy to treat addictions. Since 2018, we opened RAM clinics in Winnipeg and Selkirk, Brandon, Thompson, and Portage-la Prairie, and this year's budget goes further, expanding the capacity and hours of operation for 2 of our Winnipeg RAM clinics, investing nearly $1 million more to help hundreds more Manitobans on their journey to recovery. For those Manitobans who are struggling with mental health and addictions challenges, there are supports available to you, and our government is strengthening them. Madam Speaker, families across Canada are feeling squeezed. Inflation is driving up the cost of everything right now. Interest rates increases by the Bank of Canada are happening. It's affecting the cost of mortgages and other loans. Supply chain challenges are increasing the cost of food and fuel and household goods for Canadians all across the country. This is why our Premier and the government continue to advocate for federal action to ease the burden on Canadian families. But we're also investing right here, right now at home to provide relief for Manitobans in this budget. Since forming government, we have been working to make life more affordable for all Manitobans. Depuis sa formation, notre gouvernement s'est attaché à rendre le coût et la vie plus abordable pour tous les Manitobans. Our tax reductions have already put $2,020 back in the hands of Manitobans. We reduced the PST from 8% to 7%. We indexed the basic personal amount. We indexed all tax brackets to account for the effect of inflation. We exempted the PST from will preparation, property insurance, tax preparation, probate fees, personal services, and haircuts. But we're not done yet, Madam Speaker. This year's budget increases the education property tax rebate from 25% to 37.5% for residential and farm properties, putting another $103 million back in the wallets of Manitobans. It means the average homeowner saves almost $600 this year alone, and total rebates rise to $350 million, and we will continue to invest in affordability. Next year, that education property tax on residential and farm properties goes to 50%, saving the average homeowner $774. It is through these tax changes that our government is set to exceed our 2020 tax rollback guarantee, saving Manitobans $2,400 each. It is another promise made and another promise kept by our government. Madam Speaker, gas prices are shockingly high. The war in Ukraine and supply chain issues have increased the price of energy by over 25%. This year alone, Manitobans can't afford $2 a litre, and they know that the federal carbon tax is only making things worse. Thankfully, our Premier and the Premiers of Saskatchewan and Alberta are calling on the federal government to temporarily suspend the carbon tax so Canadians can get some much-needed relief at the pumps. But we're taking action now as well, reducing the cost to drive a car right here in Manitoba. In our last election, we promised to reduce vehicle registration fees by 30%. I'm proud to report in this year's budget, we get the job done, saving Manitobans another $15 million and reducing the total burden of registering a vehicle by over $45 million for Manitobans. On top of that, earlier this year, Manitoba Public Insurance issued $312 million in rebate checks, saving an extra $328 for the average driver. Madam Speaker, we know Manitoba families need relief as the price of fuel goes up. Our government is taking action. Manitoba renters are also struggling as inflation increases the cost of everything. Now, our government froze rental increases for 2 years during the pandemic, but we know that low-income families need additional support. So to help renters, we are implementing the new Residential Renters Credit. This new Renters Credit saves Manitoba renters up to $525 each and every year, and it also expands eligibility to the credit to 11,000 low-income households on non-EIA rent assist and 34,000 households who are living in social housing who were previously ineligible for any credit. We're doing this while investing in new municipal housing projects and supporting more vulnerable Manitobans with the Canada-Manitoba Housing Benefit. We're also investing in our homelessness strategy to connect marginalized people with the housing supports that they need. Since 2016, we've supported 4,200 more families through Rent Assist. We've built 745 more social housing units for low-income Manitobans. We are investing in affordable housing for all Manitobans. Madam Speaker, we know that for too long, many Manitoba parents have struggled to find quality childcare close to home. And when they found a space, many parents struggled to afford the fees. That kept too many Manitobans, especially women, out of the job market. Our collaboration with the federal government is changing that. It will see over $326 million invested over 2 years to make childcare more affordable and more accessible to Manitobans. And we are proud to announce that this year's budget allocates $82.7 million to expand childcare subsidies, reducing fees by 50% this year for low-income and middle-class parents right across Manitoba. This investment triples the number of children in Manitoba who are eligible for financial assistance, and it makes life more affordable for thousands of Manitoba parents. At the same time, we're creating those 716 spaces in new child care centers and supporting 50 new home-based spaces in this year. Since forming government, Madam Speaker, we've created 3,200 new child care spaces. We've invested $150 million more in direct support to help families afford child care. We are investing in accessible and affordable child care close to home. For years in this province, children in classrooms were suffering because of crumbling school infrastructure. It's why our government ran on a promise to build 20 new schools across the province in just 10 years. And Madam Speaker, I can report to the House today, we are ahead of schedule on our 20 schools guarantee. By 2027, 22 new schools will be open for Manitoba's children in need. And since 2019, we've already built 6 new schools, including Brandon, Niverville, and Winnipeg, and more. And over the next 3 years, new schools will open in Sage Creek, Waverly West, Tyndall Park, Steinbach, and Morton. Budget 2022 invests $1.7 billion in K-12 education, over $138 million more than just the previous year. And we've established an education funding model review to ensure that there's equitable funding across the province so that all students can receive a quality education where they live. We're listening to teachers, educators, and parents to provide students with the supports that they need to learn and succeed. Madam Speaker, our government has heard from many Manitobans with disabilities and their family members asking to build up supports for them. This year's budget provides $5 million more to support over 6,000 children and their families who access the Children's Disability Services Program. And it invests $24 million more to expand programming for adults with intellectual disabilities. It includes $10 million to increase wages for workers in the Community Living Disability Services Program. And we're doing more than ever to help Manitobans with disabilities live more independently right in the community. As promised, we've established the new Dignified Income Support Program for Manitobans with severe and prolonged disabilities. And after decades of institutionalized care, we're going to transition 130 people from the Manitoba Developmental Center into the community through the construction of new purpose-built homes. Manitobans want us to build up our social services, and they want us also to build up our neighborhoods. Madam Speaker, I'm proud to announce that this year's budget more than doubles funding for the Building Sustainable Communities program to $25 million for nonprofit and local governments. This means new capital projects, new playgrounds, new swimming pools, new community club upgrades, and much, much more. We know that municipalities are the backbone of healthy communities, and it's why we're providing $313 million in funding to municipalities this year, ensuring that they have the support that they need. Arts, culture, and sport also need our support, and building them back up after the challenges of the pandemic is critical. It's why this budget commits $34 million this year and $100 million over the next 3 years for arts, culture, and sports grants.
Everybody should be clapping. Come on, you guys, get on board. Good news.
Manitobans understand the need for a safe and reliable and modern infrastructure. That starts with our highways, which is why this year's budget invests $518 million in capital upgrades, including major upgrades in the Perimeter Highway at St. Mary's Road and McGillivray Boulevard interchanges. We're enhancing key trade and commerce routes, including Highway 23, and to safeguard our communities from flooding, we're committing $101 million for the Lake Manitoba and Lake St. Martin outlet channels development this year. Good. Madam Speaker, Manitobans recognize the impacts of climate change. They want us to build up our environmental protections. Recognizing the significant impact of orphaned and abandoned mine sites in Manitoba, we're investing $50 million in rehabilitation projects to improve human health and environmental safety in these areas. We're investing $6.4 million in our Climate and Green Plan, advancing innovative initiatives to create a greener province for all. And we're increasing contributions to the Conservation and Climate Fund to support a cleaner environment, climate adaptation, and low-carbon economic growth. This is on top of strategic partnerships with the federal government and Manitoba municipalities, including investments to date of over $180 million in provincial contributions alone to upgrade the City of Winnipeg's North End Water Pollution Control Centre. We are committed to working with the Government of Canada to meet international climate change targets. And we're jointly investing in public transportation, accelerating the conversion to zero-emission fleets. We're also taking steps to improve provincial parks, which Manitobans cherish. Our new Provincial Parks Endowment Fund continues to roll out investments in accessible trails and picnic tables, more yurts, and upgrades to Manitoba's campgrounds and beaches. Manitoba Parks will also benefit from a $2.7 million investment in critical infrastructure through a new multi-year Parks Capital strategy to modernize and enhance our campgrounds, roads, and trails. Madam Speaker, we are committed to working collaboratively and meaningfully with First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, putting reconciliation into action. The tragic knowledge of unmarked graves at former residential sites is a grim reminder of the cruel impact these schools had and continue to have on the lives of Indigenous children, families, communities, and survivors. Our government remains committed to working collaboratively with residential school survivors, families, Indigenous leaders, elders, and knowledge keepers to support the very important and necessary process of truth-telling and healing that will move us all forward toward truth and reconciliation. Over the last year, we've provided $2.5 million to support Indigenous-led and community-based approaches to identify, investigate, and commemorate burial sites at former residential schools. We invested in the Clan Mothers Healing Village, helping victims of multi-generational trauma, sexual violence, exploitation, and human trafficking. And we invested in a new healing lodge for youth offenders in Thompson, working in partnership with MKO to provide healing and support to Indigenous youth. And this year's budget commits $5 million more to support a whole-of-government approach to advance innovative reconciliation projects throughout Manitoba. We're investing in critical water and wastewater projects for Northern Affairs communities, and we're investing in First Nations policing, supporting Indigenous-led community safety initiatives and programming. Moving forward, we will keep working with Indigenous leaders, communities, and also the private sector to increase Indigenous participation, advance key partnerships, and ensure shared economic benefits in all sectors of Manitoba's priorities. Madam Speaker, Manitobans elected us to fix the finances. In 2019, we kept that promise to Manitobans, balancing the budget after years of mismanagement by a previous government. But the COVID-19 pandemic needed a strong response, and our government responded. That came with an increased deficit. But we have heard clearly from many Manitobans concerned with how debts and deficits impact their quality of life for them and their children and their grandchildren. And Budget 2022 addresses those concerns, forging a clear path back to balance. From a pandemic high deficit of $2.1 billion, our government has steadily reduced the deficit. This year, we project a deficit of $548 million with a commitment to return Manitoba's books to balance over the next 7 years. 7 years. That was 7 years. Madam Speaker, the last 2 years have been hard on Manitoba business owners, been hard on workers. Madame la Présidente, les 2 dernières années ont été difficiles pour les propriétaires d'entreprises et les travailleurs du Manitoba. I'm happy to report, though, that total employment surpassed pre-pandemic levels in December, and businesses are recovering, businesses are growing. Over the last year, we've experienced a historic rebound in retail sales, manufacturing sales, farm cash receipts. Our gross domestic product continues its upward trajectory and is projected to increase by 3.6% this year. We're seeing unprecedented new investment and job creation throughout the province. Vale Canada announcing $150 million to extend mining activities in Thompson. Maple Leaf Foods, $182 million expansion of their Winnipeg facility creates 350 new jobs. Just a few weeks ago, the Premier announced Ubisoft is tripling the size of its Winnipeg studio, creating 200 more jobs for Manitobans. Roquette, Simplot, McCain Foods also making significant investments in agriculture and food processing in the Manitoba market. But while Manitoba's economy is on the rebound, there are still underlying challenges that we must address as we build up our economy. According to the Canadian Venture Capital and Private Equity Association, from 2018 to 2020, less than 1% of all venture capital investments in Canada occurred in Canada, in Manitoba. That is despite our province representing 3.6% of the population. So we are taking action to ensure that businesses can thrive, investing $50 million to create a new venture capital fund to give Manitoba companies access to equity, funding for innovation, and support to expand and grow. And we are committed to increasing government contributions to the fund over the next few years. This year's budget also makes the small business venture capital tax credit permanent, and it allows Manitobans to earn tax credits for investments in new venture capital funds. And Madam Speaker, the Health and Post-Secondary Education Tax Levy, or as it's known, the payroll tax, has been an irritant to business and an obstacle to growth, and we are listening. For the third consecutive year, we are increasing the total exemption threshold for this tax to $2 million and increasing the rate threshold to $4 million. These changes reduce the payroll tax paid by almost 1,000 businesses. They entirely remove almost 200 businesses from even paying the tax at all. It was a progressive conservative government that built Manitoba's flagship provincial nominee program, the MPNP. Our government's new Immigration Advisory Council will work to enhance that program while recommending improvements to all immigration policies. And this year's budget invests $2 million new in the Newcomer Integration Support Program to find newcomers good jobs in the community. We're also focused on training Manitobans with our skills, talent, and knowledge strategy, creating greater alignment between universities and colleges and the labor market. Under the leadership of our Premier, all of these efforts are now coordinated through the Economic Development Board, which she chairs. Madam Speaker, our government believes in the incredible power of the private sector to create prosperity, to create opportunity. We believe that the private sector can help us also solve social challenges, creating a better and healthier province for Manitobans. 11 days ago, our partnership with Pharmacists Manitoba and Shoppers Drug Mart kicked off a social impact bond to help Manitobans quit smoking. It's just one more example of how partnerships with the private sector can create better outcomes for all Manitobans. There are many more projects to come, many more opportunities for Manitoba to grow and thrive as we build up the economy together. Madam Speaker, we built this budget to take action on the issues that Manitobans care about. COVID-19 pandemic, action on surgical and procedural wait times, action on inflation, rising gas prices, and interest rate hikes. We know that these issues are hard. We know that they matter very much to Manitobans. This budget addresses them. It strengthens, invests, and builds our province. It strengthens our healthcare system. It invests in making life more affordable. It builds up our economy. And it implements our plan to recover together. Madam Speaker, this is our plan. This is Manitoba's plan. Now let's get to work. Maintenant, mettons-nous au travail. Let's recover together et agissons ensemble pour la relance. Thank you. Merci.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Madam Speaker, I move, seconded by the member for St. John's, that the debate now be adjourned.
It has been moved by the Leader of the Official Opposition, seconded by the Honourable Member for St. John's, that the debate be adjourned. Is it the pleasure of the House to adopt the motion? Agreed? Agreed and so ordered. The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Madam Speaker, I have two messages for Her Honour, the Lieutenant Governor, as well as the budget documents, which I would like to table.
Please stand for the reading of the messages. To the Speaker of the Legislative Assembly, the Lieutenant Governor transmits to the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba estimates of sums required for the services of the province for the fiscal year ending the 31st day of March 2023 and recommends these estimates to the Legislative Assembly. That has been signed by the Lieutenant Governor. The second letter is to the Speaker of the Legislative Assembly. The Lieutenant Governor transmits to the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba estimates of sums required for the services of the province for capital expenditures and recommends these estimates to the Legislative Assembly. You may be seated. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move, seconded by the member for Portage La Prairie, that this House do now adjourn.
It has been moved by the Honourable Government House Leader, seconded by the Honourable Member for Portage La Prairie, that the House do now adjourn. Is it the pleasure of the House to adopt the motion? Agreed? Agreed and so ordered. The House is now adjourned and stands adjourned until 1:30 p.m. tomorrow.